All right.
Make sure you speak into the mic. All right. Hi, everyone online. Hi, everybody in the room. Welcome to today's session on personal branding on social media. So, how many of you are somewhere actively on a social media network? Give me a show of hands. Somewhere. Yeah, no matter where.
Somewhere.
To the details of where, but you're somewhere. And active meaning I go to that profile and I post on it. Okay, I'm hearing a little mix there. So if you ahas, if you few observers, maybe you go there, but you don't say anything. You're just watching. All right, so we're going to talk about this today, and we're going to talk about it from a personal branding perspective of how do you package yourself when you are in those rooms, because that's what they are. We're in a room physically today, but I also want you to start thinking about social media more strategically, because it's another room that you can bring yourself into where people don't know who you are. You have the opportunity to capture their attention and really be able to present yourself and gain more visibility. Visibility, credibility, authority. Okay, that's what I want you all to think about. So let me give you a little backstory. I'm sorry, I'm not the best at using math, so hopefully I can click through this the right way. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm gonna give you all a little bit on my backstory and why I got on social media and what that's done for me, so that hopefully it inspires you without being an influencer, without having 1 million followers. That none of that matters. Okay? What matters is what I heard Dr. Perry say, your own unique story, and how much that matters and how you position yourself in front of your audience based on whoever they might be. Okay? So, when I was 29, I was working in corporate America, was in a sales job, awesome position, and decided to take a pivot in my career. I was in the pharmaceutical industry. The company I was with had never done layoffs and didn't want to do layoffs, but they all offered voluntary exits. And asked 300 employees, would you be willing to leave and take a package? I was 29 at the time. I had no kids. I was just married. I raised my hand. If I don't start this business now, while I got basically severance coming to me, when would I do it? What better time? It's kind of how I looked at it at that moment. So I left that career. And I started on my journey in launching a business, which today has become a marketing company and communications and other things. Now, one thing that I realized when I was stepping out of being in that corporate position to becoming an entrepreneur, and even for you, if you're in a corporate position, whether or not you're still stepping into your next phase, especially if you're going to be getting more speaking opportunities, the thing that I realized really quickly is there was a gap that I had. And that gap was one that was going to need to be closed very quickly. It was one where I needed visibility, and I knew I needed to network. And there was 2 approaches I thought about that, okay? At the time, I was already on LinkedIn, so I knew, okay, LinkedIn's a great opportunity where I can see what people do for a living and align myself with that. But I also knew, and I'm a believer because I'm a marketing and social media agency, so we focus on digital marketing, and as much as I focus on how much you need to have an online presence, I'm also a big believer that nothing replaces face-to-face communication. So I knew I needed to be networking and in rooms physically as I launched into that world. Now, what that eventually led to, again, was LinkedIn and being in a lot of on-person events. Over time, and this is kind of the web, and this could be a really giant web, but one thing that I did for myself when I said, okay, I need to position myself in a stronger way, and I started with LinkedIn, and I would say for probably all of you in that room, in this room here, this is probably the most logical social media network where you can start to launch your personal brand and grow visibility. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the other social media networks too, because each one of them brings value, but LinkedIn is, again, by far, probably the place that should be your starting point, where at the very least, you should have a presence and be visible, okay? For me, it was LinkedIn. And what that led to was a web of opportunities over what's now been 15 plus years that have really helped me grow and build my business. And I'm not talking about small things. Like, there have been small things. There have been speaking engagements that I landed from that. There have been full-time jobs opportunities that I landed from it. Okay, part-time job opportunities, people I've met that have become friends, close friends, business opportunities. Those are the opportunities you have when you leverage social media. It's free. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that, okay? 4 tactics that I did, and I've done this not just with myself, but with many of my clients over the past 15 years to help them bridge that gap, especially when I've met a lot of people who are uncomfortable with social media for a lot of reasons. One question I often get, do I gotta post every day? Is that gonna be a thing? Do I need to post all the time? Do I have to make these videos? Do I have to do all the trends? Authority is timeless. Authority is timeless. You don't have to do the trends to show your authority. Okay? I want you to think about that and let it sink in for a second. It never changes. Okay? There are some things when it comes to building your brand online that don't shift, and that's one of them. Okay? So, 4 tactics. First one here, it says consistency. When you do start to show up online, and I'm going to start with LinkedIn just as a really simple example, you need to be there consistently, okay? So I sat in on part of the workshop that you all just did on bios and Dr. Perry, and the bios, of course, that she was talking about were like the longer, more detailed bios that might like be on your website or in a media kit. But then there's the online version of that exists on social media that needs to be simplified. And I'm going to get into the details of that, but I want you to think about how people digest information today and how you take your background and just take it and make it what we call snackable or bite-sized. How do I take that background in the mortgage industry? How do I take that background as someone starting and launching a nonprofit and create one sentence that makes what I do memorable and easy for people to understand? And when you're speaking to people online and you're packaging yourself online, we all know elevator pitches exist, right, when we're in rooms like this. Well, it's kind of like an elevator pitch, but it needs to be short and concise. Because people are exposed to so much information today, our brains can only digest so much. And when you're online, you're competing with literally what is a highway, right? You ride down a real highway, you're riding down 75, 85, and you got billboard after billboard after billboard, and some catch your attention and some don't. That's a social media feed. It's the same thing. And so what can you do through the content that you share? And then once someone has seen your content, it makes them go back to your profile and say, oh, okay, I get what this person does. I understand what they do. A really simple starting point. So y'all just talked about bios. After you write your bio, okay, I want you to look back after you reword your bios and then start with the phrase, I help blank. I help blank. And blank is whoever your ICP, ideal customer profile, whoever that is, okay? I help families, blank, blank, blank. I help African American cancer survivors, blank, 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 okay? Make it tight, make it concise. There's a little saying in marketing. Some of you, if you have a marketing or sales background, you may have heard this acronym. Anyone heard KISS? Yeah. Keep it short and simple. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Yeah. So you want to make those short little bios that people will read on LinkedIn. And if you're expanding your presence, you're like, hey, I got LinkedIn. It's Instagram. It's YouTube. It's TikTok. It's these other places where I need to become more visible. Same rule applies, because you only have not even a microsecond to capture somebody's attention and for them to really be able to process, because most people aren't reading, they're skimming, and they're taking their finger and doing just like this on their phone the whole time, okay? And so you gotta have something that people digest really quickly, so keep it simple. So I help blank, and then the next thing that follows that, I heard Dr. Perry say action verbs, so do this, whatever, put a verb there, I'm just gonna say do, but I help blank do, and then the next line, blank is the result that you give people. A line that simple can become, on LinkedIn, a lot of people put their job title. That's nice, doesn't describe what you do. Replace your job title with who you help and how you help them. And you will land more inquiries. You will get more visibility from your target audience because you've now clarified with a really clear and consistent message, this is what I do. Okay? Now, so consistency also involves, one thing I also did, and let me also say, this stuff that I'm mentioning to you, it doesn't end with doing it one time. You gotta constantly reinvent yourself, right? So I've probably changed my headshot, I don't know, at least 10 times for the entire time I've had LinkedIn, maybe more than that, maybe every year to other year is changing, okay? Make sure that your headshot is consistent on any social media platform that you have a profile on. So even if you join TikTok, but you don't ever post TikToks, put your consistent headshot there so that it's easy for people to know, oh, this is the same Sonja I saw on Instagram. This is the same Sonja I saw on LinkedIn. This is the same Sonja that's on YouTube. This is the same Sonja whose website I saw. Same headshot. Consistency. If you're really going for branding and you already have a website, then take it a step further with your color scheme, your font usage. All of those things need to also be consistent. So consistent headshots across all social media. That bio, for that short little line we just talked about, also consistent. Now reword it a little, and I'll show you some examples of bios in a minute, and I'll pull up some as well. The words might be a little different. Like my bio, word for word, or my short little line on LinkedIn is slightly different than what it is on Instagram and slightly different than Facebook. But generally, it's the same message is caught for what I do. So make sure you're easy to recognize. Communication plan. All right, so one of the other things I did when I left that corporate career was I came up with a communication plan. It was literally something I made up. I'm going to show you the template. It was very simple. And it was a way that I just very strategically said, who am I talking to? What am I saying? And how am I going to build connections strategically? Okay? So communication plan. Have a professional website. Now, with a professional website, even if that is a one-page website that does nothing more than have your headshot, describe who you are, what you do, who you help, and maybe some links if you started getting featured in podcasts, or you've done some speaking, or you got that video on YouTube already. Link out to those things, but use your website as your foundation. That's your home base. When people Google you, it should be one of the first things that pops up when people Google your name. Unless over time, of course, you get more visibility and media attention and things like that, okay? But that's your home. The other reason why it's important in relation to branding on social media is because I heard, I think you all were talking about CTA's call to action, right? So a lot of times in digital communication and online communication, if you have a call to action and you're asking someone to do something, you're trying to take them somewhere next. Well, in most cases, they need to end up on your website. So if you have a social media profile, let's say an Instagram account, then Instagram gives you a link right up at the top of your profile. Where are you sending people? That's the question. And that's valuable real estate online where you can control how your audience interacts with you and your brand. So, in most cases, send them to your website. And we don't have as much time today, but you can even get more specific with beyond your homepage where you send people. So generally speaking, you need to send them to your website. Okay? Real world, again, I'm a believer, bridge the online with the offline. So really simple thing. If there are people in here, like you all are sitting in a room together and you're meeting for the first time, you're networking, right? Go find that person on LinkedIn when you leave this room, bridge online or offline with online. Now we're building up connections. Now down the line, if I've met so-and-so and we have this in common, we're both working on our Toastmasters event, and working on our speaking and things like that, then there are opportunities down the line where we might be able to help each other out. And we're connected on LinkedIn, so we don't have to talk on the phone all the time. I don't have to reach out all the time, but I can send them a message on LinkedIn. I can see when their work anniversary is. I can see what they've been doing and comment on their posts. Even if I'm not posting, I can comment on other people's posts and show up for them to maintain visibility and get into conversations. Okay? But it helps when you've met in person, offline, to bridge those connections. So that helps tremendously. Anytime you do a speaking engagement, meet again. The people you met in that room, reach back out to them, connect with them online. LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever it works. Okay, so these are some examples. Sorry, y'all, this isn't that big for you all to see, so you can't really read that much of it. But thank you so much. All right, so let me give you a quick example, and I'll pull up live on LinkedIn as well. But these are just some examples of some teams I've worked with in the past. When I talk about like consistency and branding and things like that, and it partly depends, again, on as you're starting to package yourself, am I packaging for myself as maybe like a manager or an executive at a company where that role is very important, or am I packaging myself again for my personal brand because I own a business and I'm launching and I want people to recognize that. So these two examples I have right now, over to the left, these are two people from the same company. So Nick and Amy, they work for a company, Frontline Performance Group. Nick, he's got his title, so partner and executive. So they chose, I gave them the option to do the I help this, that. They wanted to go the job title route, so you can still do that. It's not the end of the world. But in their case, they say what they do. And then if you notice between both of these profiles, color scheme is similar. Clean headshot, typically from about right here up, so chest up. Okay, really clear, same thing right here with Jennifer and Monica from Complete College America. Now in their case, they as a company agreed, anyone we hire, they gave them all this banner to use so that as a company, they have consistency across different people in positions, okay? So you could be in a position like that, where you're at a company and you want to brand for that purpose, or this background could be replaced with something that more personally reflects you and what you do. I'm going to pull up, leave the slide deck for a moment, and, is Janelle in here? Okay, I'll come back to LinkedIn. This is her computer, and it's wanting you to log in to see the LinkedIn profile. Sorry about that, but thank you so much. But on LinkedIn, a couple of things I'm going to break down for you that are really important when it comes to your profile and what you want to have on there. So we just talked about headshot, how important that is. We just talked about I help people blank, blank, blank. That's important. That's what people see if you pop up in search results or your profile, and they quickly know what you do. The other section on LinkedIn, I'm going to show you in just a moment, is LinkedIn gives you kind of like an about section. It's just a section where you can put whatever you want there and fill it with a lot of text. Now, social media networks, as you all know, they have algorithms. They also operate a lot off of keywords, okay? And keywords means what are the words most closely associated with what you do that people might go and just do like a Google search for, or they might go onto LinkedIn and search in. So like for me, again, I do marketing, I do digital communications, I do social media, and I do a lot of trainings. And so in my profile, repeatedly, from my about section to my job descriptions, I have the words digital marketing on repeat over and over. Social media trainer, social media instructor, social media training. All kinds of variations are throughout my entire profile, okay? So, thank you so much. I'm gonna just keep open mine. There we go. No, I won't do it to you. All right, so again, that about section starts right down here. So at the top, you have headshot, You have, so this is one that's like maybe, again, if you're more so positioning for yourself, if you're a freelancer, if you're an entrepreneur, this is more about, it doesn't, honestly, I don't even have my company name right here. Because honestly, that's not important to me. What's important is that people know exactly what I do the moment they land on my profile. I want you to know me, and you'll find out who my company is and all those details, but immediately you land here, digital marketing, social media, training, consulting, strategies, and then it's kind of small, but it says for marketing, teams, and busy professionals. So as soon as you land here, you know, do I want to work with her or not? Is she the right fit? Right? And so you can position yourself similar, okay? Then we get into going into, again, this little line right here. So mine, I took out the I help because I've gone through many iterations of that short little profile. So mine is simple. Simplifying communication, social media, analytics, and ads for busy teams, startups, and professionals. And then I put a job title, co-founder, go-getter marketing group, okay? Then we scroll down, we get to the about section, and if no one reads this, again, what it does is it helps me get found really quickly, okay? And so in this section, I just talk a little bit about what I do. And again, if I did a search on this for how many times the word digital marketing pops up, it's at least 30 times on this page. And then you can get down into feature. Okay, in your last session, feature came up of like what goes in this featured section. So for me, this is a section to put calls to action. I put, you can work with me one-on-one, schedule a power hour. You can learn more about my custom training. Here's my about us page. You can decide what you want to put there. For me, instead of a press kit, when you click on this third one, about me, it goes to a video, and then it's kind of like a little, here's what I do, here's a little bit about me. Now, that's a whole other area too, where you have an opportunity to brand yourself. So on LinkedIn, I kind of think about this is what's pinned at the top. This doesn't go away. Anytime people land here, this is what they're going to see. How many of you are on Instagram? Okay. Instagram, similar. Just depends on your comfort level. Okay. But Instagram, I'm just going to kind of bundle Instagram, TikTok. They're all kind of similar, at least at the top. Now you only get one link at the top. Okay. Now my bio is a little bit different on this one because my Instagram intentionally is a little bit more playful. It's a mix for me of business and social things, but it's very much like still, this is, you find me, this is who I am. Same picture, ads, analytics, social media trainer. Much shorter. Notice, I don't get into the simplifying community, we don't have that much space on Instagram, you don't have that much space on TikTok, okay? Grow smarter online. This link, I have 2 Instagram profiles, so I'm linked, well actually I have 3, but I'm linked to another profile, and then I mentioned here, again, my business is linked here as well. Across the top on Instagram, these sections right here are what we call highlights. If you publish stories on Instagram, which are the kind of posts that go away after 24 hours, you could take those stories and create what we call highlights. So, past posts that I've done, if you click here on training, I have a training section, and then it just goes into video after video or photo after photo of things that have been training related. Why do I do that? And why would you want to do that? Because this starts to build into social proof and credibility. I'm a real person. I really go out and speak. I really get booked for events. These are the kind of things I do. These are the kind of people I help. That's part of what you got to do when you start packaging yourself online. The social proof comes over time, okay? And so this didn't start this way on day one. So if you're at the beginning of this trying to figure out, well, I'm not in a space where I have all that, that's okay. It's a buildup over time of documenting, okay? That storytelling piece is important. So when you are at events, when you get booked for speaking engagements, take photos. It's not because you're trying to post about it and brag about it. It's because I want to document and tell the story behind who I am and what I do and who I help. That's what the intention is, okay? So that's where you have opportunity to do that. One more thing, so mine here, I've got a few links. Again, these go to websites and then I just have it to a podcast interview. But I change this link out all the time. On Instagram, I don't always use the same link because I'm not always trying to send people directly to my homepage. If I was on a podcast recently, sometimes I send people there. So you can do that, swap the link out. If you want to send people to your media kit for a while, send them there. And then do a post. And don't be shy about saying, hey, I just, got this certification, or I'm speaking more about XYZ, or hey, I want to reintroduce myself to everyone who's following me on this page. It's okay to do those kind of posts because the people you need to reach are the people who are going to see it and respond to it. And then sometimes, again, pin those things at the top of your profile. So if on Instagram, I don't have any pin on this profile right now, but you can pin at the top things that are valuable that you really want people to know about. All right, so if I click over to this one, we have pins at the top. And notice the little pin mark. Okay? All right, so high level, those are the important things that I want you to think about when it comes to starting to build that visual presence. All right, I gotta find the slides in here. I might need Janelle again. Janelle! All right, let me see if I can. How do I get back to the screen? Yes. I will not go out and say. All right, so those are some examples of how we start to pull that together. These are some examples, live examples. I just went through this live with you. All right, the communication plan I mentioned to you all, this is what it looked like. It was on a spreadsheet. It was very simple. Here's what was on the communication plan. Unique selling proposition. What was I offering that made me unique or different? Because there's a million people that manage social media, do social media, talk about social media. They're the social media guru. So how do I make that unique and different to my audience? So, unique selling proposition. Ask yourself that question in just a couple sentences. What do I offer that's different or unique? Key messages. For me, my goal was to proactively reach out to people on LinkedIn. It wasn't to sit and wait. And so I had to also think about, if I reach out to people and they respond, and I think I even heard Dr. Perry say like 3 things you want people to remember. What were the 3 things that I needed people to know and remember when we get into a conversation? This can happen on social media initially through DMs, direct messages. And so on LinkedIn, it might be, I reached out to someone who was the head of learning and development for such and such organization and said, hey, are you looking for speakers? And then they might respond back and I'll say, hey, I speak on blank, blank, blank. And here's who I help and I'd love to talk with you more. And usually if I'm online, my recommendation to you is don't stay in the DMs forever. Bridge to a real conversation. Phone, Zoom, but don't, if you keep messaging people back and forth and expecting them to respond, you will lose them. So it can start through a direct message or contacting someone through their inbox, but you need to quickly, hey, would it be okay if we have a 5-minute intro meeting? Something along those lines, okay? All right, LinkedIn focus, again, that was just for me again because I was very focused on LinkedIn. Just what did I want to hone in on? So that was just a kind of an extra area that I put for LinkedIn specifically. I mentioned you need to have keywords on your profile, keywords and niche focus. I listed out what the keywords were. Now, how do you find out what keywords are right? Go to Google and start typing in things related to what you do. And what Google usually does is it'll start filling in for you. Those are usually the terms that people search the most when it starts to fill it in for you. Those are the questions that people are asking the most. So start typing in different variations of that, okay? That's a good starting point for keyword research. You can go much deeper than that, but that's a really good starting point to find out the keywords. Do the same on LinkedIn if you're gonna be on LinkedIn. So one of the things I did on LinkedIn was I typed in social media. At the time for me, it was more social media management. So social media manager, digital marketing manager, digital marketing consultant, social media consultant. I wanted to see who came up and where I was on that list on LinkedIn searches. Because I showed y'all in the beginning that matrix of how I got opportunities through networks like LinkedIn was because people did searches like that and my name came up. And then they contacted me. And let me tell y'all, when you start getting contacted through your website and people start contacting you through social media asking you for things, let's talk about a speaking engagement, let's talk about this, let's talk about that, could we hire you for this, could we talk more about that? They are already 85 to 90% of the way there. They just need to talk to you and validate what they see online is true, and it adds up. They are already almost there. They are ready to work with you. They're already interested. They feel like they know you if you put out video, photo, and you're consistent in posting. They've already checked you out. All you gotta do is close the deal. Okay? How will I introduce myself? So I came up with a plan of, okay, when I do reach out to these people, what am I gonna say? So just a short, how do I introduce myself? Without sounding salesy. For me, that was my style. I didn't wanna sound salesy. I didn't want to overwhelm them with case studies and stats on this, and that. But I did initially name drop. Hey, I'm Sonja. I work with XYZ companies on things like XYZ. Would you be open to a 5-minute intro? Or are you looking for people who talk about XYZ? So think about how you might introduce yourself. And that's it. And then other than that, it's like outreach goal. How many people was I going to reach out to per week, per month? Things like that, okay? You can duplicate this same process on Instagram. I have several clients I've worked with who grew their Instagram accounts, again, and grew a qualified audience, not just followers for the sake of followers, but because they DM people who were talking about things related to what they do or had questions because they were looking at other profiles and participating in the network. So you gotta go beyond being an observer and saying, okay, this is nice, or so-and-so is doing this and that overwhelm that could come with all these influencers and all these things that pop up, and just say, what do I wanna do and who do I wanna talk to, and then go talk to them. That's all you're doing. Simplify it, break it down, make it easier for yourself and your mind to process, okay? Because it's not about the big numbers. It's just about, I'm talking to this person one-on-one when I send them a message. When I make a video, I'm talking to my audience and I'm thinking of me and that person talking one-on-one. Okay, so positioning is super important. Okay, here's another thing to think about too. All right, a little bit on the website, media page, about us page, because remember, if you have a CTA and you're sending people somewhere, where are you sending them? Now, a lot of times if you have a very specific product or service, you might send them to a landing page that talks about that specific product, service, giveaway, things like that. But at the very least, your website, again, should be the landing place where you bring people. And then you might have that media kit or about us page, or right here, this example, this one's from my company website. So we have a page on there that's our news page. You could do this on your own personal website, where you have your appearances listed, and people can click on them and link to them and watch them. Because it goes back to what I just said, people already 85 to 90% have their mind made up. Usually by the time someone reaches out to me and they ask for me to participate in a speaking engagement, it's because they already went to a previous engagement, video, podcast interview, post, and they already watched my style and made a decision if I'm the right fit for their organization, whatever that is or not. So you can do the same thing. Podcasts. For me, it doesn't matter to me if I'm invited to a podcast if there's 2 listeners or 1,000 listeners. Because once it's on the internet, it's there. It's an opportunity to have a great conversation and showcase what you do, especially when you're in the starting place for getting more speaking engagements. It's a great opportunity to showcase your knowledge and start positioning yourself as more of an authority and expert. So if you know someone that has a podcast, ask to be interviewed. You could do it without officially being on a real podcast. You could stage your own interview and have someone interview you and ask you questions about topics that you speak really well about, record it. You can do this low tech. Camera phones are great. And then get it up on YouTube. Upload it directly into Instagram. Upload it directly into LinkedIn. Because now you have, again, documentation and social proof on what your knowledge is and how you're positioning yourself with that authority you have. Okay? So, you don't need to be an influencer. You don't need to post every day, but you do need clarity and you do need consistency, right? So, let's talk a little bit more about this, okay? If you're going to launch or refresh your brand, I'm going to give you, over the next, what do I have, about 10 minutes left or so? I'm going to give you a quick process, clear, simple acronym to remember, clarity, look, essence, alignment, repetition, on how you can approach either growing your visibility for the first time or refreshing it. If you're already there, you need to figure out what do I do next. Okay, so clear. So the first thing, and I'm going to go through each one so you'll be able to write it down again if you're taking notes. C is clarity, okay? What you want to be known for and who you are, okay? So again, that short little I help link with what so they can result, super important. When you're packaging yourself on social media, again, you need to be clear and concise about what your message points are. And then if you decide to take the next step, so I did the headshot, I did the short bio, I updated my about section on LinkedIn, I decided to also expand onto Instagram. Great. Now what do? Okay, you need to post. And then you need to think about how frequently you're going to post. My recommendation, if you are someone who doesn't really love social media, but you're like, hey, I do want to get more visible, then just aim for maybe posting something once a week. You don't need to be on social media every day if that is not your thing. I probably post on LinkedIn 2 to 4 times per month. I don't overwhelm people because there's other ways I can communicate with my audience beyond LinkedIn. Once they're on my email list, once they visited my website, once they follow me on other channels, okay? So think about what that is. For me, it's more important to speak when I have something valuable to say. But you do remember, it is social media. You need to be consistent, okay? So however much or however often you choose to publish something, stay consistent. Talk about what you do and the value of it, okay? All right, so make sure you package yourself and you have clarity on that. Then there's the visual credibility, right? Because we're still talking about personal brand. That's important, okay? So make sure your headshots are intentional. Y'all are doing that today, so you don't really need to worry about that. But clear face, natural light, neutral background, confident expression. You all are taking real headshots. I'll admit, the headshot I'm using right now is an AI headshot. It's not me. It looks real though. And that's because I was ready to just refresh my headshot for the time being. Okay? If you're comfortable with that, you can play with that and get yourself a lot more mileage without having to constantly do photo shoots. Okay? But if you do choose to book a photo shoot for yourself and you're going to use it on social media, if you do hire someone to capture video footage of you that you're going to use on social media, schedule 4 to 8 hours of their time. That way, you create enough content to use for months ahead. You don't need to be in a position where you constantly need new photos. If I take the time, and the last time I did one with a photographer and videographer, we had enough to last me probably 6 months. That's a good investment, okay? Because then you can take what you used and repurpose it across different channels. If it's a video, there's a bunch of different ways you can take little clips and use it, okay? So if you decide to go that route, block your time. You do blocks, okay? All right, essence. So your bio is your digital handshake. So again, who, what, why, and make sure it's human. You all kind of talked about this in the last session, so I'm not going to go that deep right here. Okay, but I gave an example here. Project manager, helping teams communicate better, passionate about leadership and clarity, Toastmasters member, lifelong learner, right? Those are some different ways you can position yourself. And then if that's your bio and that's what you're communicating about yourself, again, your content, anything that you're posting about should align with that. And then if you take people to your website and they land on your website, it should also align with that. That's part of clarity, creating that alignment, because now someone can follow and understand clearly what you do and the stories that you share behind it, because now they have a clear picture in their mind based on how you position yourself. And that's what you gotta do. So this, when I go back to that KISS, keep it simple, you're positioning yourself in a way that's really easy for people to remember. It's really easy for people to get and understand. Because again, we're faced with so much right here on this device that we're walking around with. You want to make it easy for people to know and remember what you do. Okay, A, alignment. So it says, pick the right platform, not all of them. This is important. Okay, so I'm giving you all examples of, do this on TikTok, do LinkedIn. And again, my recommendation to you is LinkedIn at the very minimum is where you should be. You don't need to be everywhere and everything to everyone. Pick one and get really, really good at it. And then consider if you want to expand somewhere else. Don't spread yourself too thin, because if you're managing this all on your own, it's a big time commitment to try to create one post every week on 5 different platforms. That's stressful if you're doing it all by yourself. So just pick one and get really good at it. And then repetition, okay? So the repetition is, once I position myself and I start posting content, I'm going to say the same things again and again and again. I'm going to say it differently. I'm going to tell different stories behind it, okay? But you go on repeat and stay very much aligned and focused to how you're presenting yourself and how you're positioning yourself. Content ideas. What do I talk about? You can talk about things you're learning about. So learnings, takeaways, best practices in your industry, in your line of work. You can talk about what you're working on and relate that, make it relatable to real world. You can talk about lessons from speaking or leadership. Things you learned along the way. Okay, so little grand reset, this is homework to think about doing over the next 30 days, which is one professional photo everywhere, update your bio using the formula I gave you, one primary platform selected. If you already feel like I'm good there, okay, great, go to another one and get really good at that one. So you start expanding your visibility, because who you connect with on LinkedIn could be totally different than TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. One post per week for 30 days. Give yourself a little challenge. That's 4 posts, just one a week. But think it out in advance. Don't sit at your computer on a Monday morning thinking, what am I going to talk about? Try to do it, again, in a time block. Dedicate maybe an hour out of your day once a month to think about, what can I talk about? What's a simple post, right? Then there's going to be spur of the moment things too. But you can have what I call evergreen content, stuff that's timeless that you can talk about that doesn't matter when you post it. So think about that, okay? All right, reminder, and then I can go to, is there any time for questions? Maybe a quick question or two? Maybe not. All right, you don't need to be louder, you need to be clearer. Quick question, go ahead, really quick.
Hi, I'm Kirsten. I'm a doctor of chiropractic, and I'm also a speaker. And something that I have
So
a challenge or
neither one of these
is when I am
chargers are
speaking
getting
about
power from the
nervous,
outlet.
speak about what I do, who I am, all the things.
I have both with
People
me.
are more interested in wanting to be my patient, which is so great because I love patients.
This
But at
one
the same
is the one I
time,
take
it's
back
like,
and forth to work because it's pretty.
I differentiate between the two, between speaker and doctor. And both of me for speaking, and not
That's the
necessarily
pretty
both
one.
of me for being a doctor, but come in and set up an appointment, not necessarily book.
Stand right
I
there.
have a practice,
It's supposed
right?
to light
So
up
how
right here
can
once it's plugged in.
differentiate
and there's
the
no
two
light.
and still combine them?
Yeah. Okay,
Maybe
let's
you
talk
have to
more
use
one-off
that cord over
after.
here.
The quick answer to that again
Nothing.
goes back to the positioning. If you're being asked to do that, and just specifically related to social media, what that positioning looks like online and who you're appealing to. And there might just need to be some adjustments in what that package looks like so that people understand you're available for speaking and focusing on things maybe related to the nervous system and helping them regulate versus coming in for a physical adjustment. Okay? All right, I tell you what, let's, I don't wanna run you over, so let's chat one off, I'll stay in this corner. I have resources for you, if you wanna scan the QR code, it's a link, and it's a link to just simply you put in your name and email address, okay? And what I'll be doing is sending you a follow-up. I have a ton of free resources, starting with what we just talked about today, a scorecard that you can take that helps you, one, just kind of assess where you are today, and then a little bit of guidance that comes after you do that scorecard on here's what you specifically need to do next based on where you are, along with a few other resources like a LinkedIn optimization profile template and some other details around that. So if you want any of those resources, scan the code. I'm on social media almost everywhere under Sonja Crystal, Sonja with a J, Crystal with a C.
See, it's supposed to light up
So
white
you
right
can
here
find
when
me
it's
there,
powered up.
or just
A white
go on
light
my
comes
website,
on.
sonjacrystal.com. Thank you all so much.